Hey everyone, it's Shayna. I'm here with a video on the 5 tips of starting a bullet journal that I think are very, very important. My first tip is to start with the basics. Take your writing utensil, pen or pencil, and your paper, and write down the things that you need in a planner. So if you know that you're going to need a monthly overview, then write that down. If you know that you want to try out weeklies before dailies, or if you know that you use dailies over weeklies or both, or if you want to try all three, if you want to try tracking, try and start with the basic things that you need in a bullet journal. Not the things that you want to have in your bullet journal because other people have them, but the things that you need. So if you can't think of anything to track, any habits or things like that, like your mood or stuff, if you can't think of those kind of things to track, don't do it yet. Start with the very basics of what you need. And you don't even need decor. You don't need washi, you don't need stickers, you don't need anything but a pen and paper to actually get started. I very highly suggest, right out the gate, highly suggest reading the bullet journal from Ryder Carroll. I didn't read this book for a long time, and I finally read it, and it seriously changed my planner life. I didn't take every bit that he shows in there. I didn't do everything that he suggests, but I did take a lot. I learned a lot, and I took a lot of things from his system and implemented it into my system, and now I'm so happy with my system. So you don't have to read that book, but I do highly suggest it. I wish I would have read it before I started bullet journaling. I did do some bullet journaling back in like 2017, 2018, but it was really decorative. It wasn't actual planning. What I ended up doing was I actually drew out my pages, and then I went back and filled them in after the fact. So it wasn't really planning, it was more of a memory keeper. I didn't really start bullet journaling until my first Stology, which was I think in 2020 or late 2019. I forget when I started it. So it hasn't even been 2 years yet that I've truly been bullet journaling, and I wish I had read this book from the start. It has been recommended to me so many times, and I just put it off. Finally read it, wish I had read it sooner. So if you can, I would suggest reading that book first. His book is going to be pretty much everything you need to start with the basics. You start with the system, and then you move on to decorating and things like that. You know, there's a lot of arguments or debates online about what is the bullet journal method. A lot of people swear that all the decorative, doodle heavy spreads and stuff aren't the true bullet journal method. But the thing is, in his book, he even mentions that you need to use your planner. So if those doodles and artistic things and whatever is what you need to be able to use your planner, that is still, and it's still working for you, that is still the bullet journal method. Your planner is yours. So really, really start with the basics. Figure out what you need. With habit tracking, don't track too much. I see a lot of posts where people are saying, you know, I have these trackers, what else should I add? And they're great. I love those posts because sometimes it gets your mind jogging a little bit and you're like, oh, this might be helpful, right? I hadn't even thought of that. But most of the time, the first thought that comes to my mind is, if you haven't already thought of it, if you have things that you're tracking and you haven't thought of it, you don't need it. Start with the basics. You know, if you want to track your moods because you want to see what's affecting your moods and the weather and stuff like that, that's awesome. If you need to track like me, I have always had body pains, chronic body pain. It stems from something specific. I've had it my whole life, and I had never thought to track it. One day I was like, you know, I don't even need to track the severity. I just need to track how many days this is to the point where I can't do anything anymore. And I have been tracking that for a little bit now, and the amount of days where I have the inability to do anything because my body is in just constant pain is astounding. I didn't realize it was that many days, and I never would have had I not started tracking it. So there's that. I didn't start out tracking that. I added that in later, but You know, you don't want to do too many habits, new habits at a time. You want to kind of keep it minimal, because if you track too many things at one time, you're not going to use it. So again, just really start with the basics. Start with the things you know you're going to need in your planner. You can always add more things in later as you go. Tip number 2 is that your planner needs to work for you and only you. Even if you share your planner online, you need to worry more about what you think of your planner than what other people are going to think of your planner. Not everyone starts out, or nobody starts out as an expert, right? Everyone starts out a beginner. And you're never going to progress if you don't just start. You know, my first spreads in my bullet journal, I didn't know that I liked, but I had people that told me they loved it and they wish their planner could look like that. And I'm like, this looks awful, I thought. Well, somebody else thought it looked amazing and they wished they could do it. And it was really encouraging to them to see how, you know, in my case, it was really simple. And so they were like, oh, that's not really that complicated. I could probably do that. And they tried it. So even if you don't share your planner though, just please remember that your planner only needs to work for you. You don't need to compare to other people. I know that's easier said than done. I do it all the time myself, so I get it. But your planner really does only need to work for you. If it's not working for you, then you need to look at your system and start back to the basics. Whenever my planner isn't working for me, when I'm not reaching for it anymore, when I'm just not using it as much as I used to, I either know that the size isn't working for me, which happens occasionally, but most often it's because something in my system isn't working for me anymore and I need to evaluate what that is. So then I go back to the basics. I take out all the decor, all the washi, the stickers, the color, everything, and I go back to pen and paper. So it kind of goes back to tip number 1, where you need to start with the basics. If you're finding that your planner isn't working for you, go back to the basics. First and foremost, your planner needs to work for you and only you. Rule number 3 kind of goes hand in hand with rule number 2, and that is that it's your planner and it's your rules. Your planner, your rules. If you want to cut a page up, if you want to cut the binding off, punch it and put it in a ring binder, or some other thing that you haven't really seen anybody else do, or even if you have, do it. It's your planner. You make the rules on your planner. I've seen a lot of posts where people ask, can I do this in my planner? And thankfully, I'm really thankful that the responses I always see are, why not? It's your planner. If you don't like it, start over. Or, you know, like if you do some like you're used to doing 1-page weeklies and you decide randomly to do a 4-page weekly instead, and, you know, get rid of dailies or something like that, try it. And if you don't like it, go back. If you make a mistake and you want to paste something over it, or if you want to glue the pages together, do it, or leave it. The other day I wrote 18 and 19 instead of 19 and 20, and what I ended up doing, instead of whiting it out or anything, I literally, just with a different pen even, I crossed it out and wrote 19, and crossed out 19 and wrote 20, and I even uploaded those to Instagram, like mistakes and all. If you've watched any of my other YouTube videos, you know that I pretty much make a mistake in every single layout I do. It is what it is. And part of what my bullet journal journey has been is to embrace, accept, and move on from those mistakes. I do use whiteout here and there, but often I will just leave it. I won't cover it up with anything, but that's me. That's me, right? Like, I know that to some people that's not what they want to do. So if you want to glue the page together and start over, or if you want to paste over it with something else, do it. It's your planner. You make the rules on your planner. No one else does. Tip number 4 is to try new things. So this is kind of more of a suggestion, I guess, than a tip, because I know, you know, obviously if you found your groove and you really don't want to change, go for it. Don't change a thing. But if you are kind of like me, where every once in a while you get kind of bored with what you're doing, you've been doing the same thing over and over and you kind of want to switch it up, do it. Like, I'm considering doing a fully stickered week next week, and I don't really use stickers anymore because I can. It's kind of trying something not new, but different for me anyway. It's kind of nice, especially when you're trying new things, You can kind of weed out the things that you don't like by trying new things, because now you're going from a 1-page weekly to a 4-page weekly, and it really doesn't work for you, and you really need to go back to a 1-page weekly. Well, now you know that a 4-page weekly doesn't work for you, and you don't have to sit there and stew about it anymore and think about it and what if I did this, what if I did that. You just know a 4-page weekly doesn't work for you. But on the other hand, if something happens in your life later on where suddenly that 4-page weekly might make sense, now you have something to reference back to, and you can be like, well, maybe that'll work for this, and then you can try it there. I have done that so many times. So try new things if you want to. Again, your planner, your rules, and your planner needs to work for you. So they all kind of tie together, honestly. Tip number 5 is that perfection doesn't exist. Please remember that practice makes progress, not perfection. Perfection does not exist. No one starts out an expert at something. I think I mentioned it before, where everyone starts somewhere, and we all start with different skills that we bring to the table. And as you move on and continue working on it, you will progress and find your style. And who knows, somebody may look at your style, and as critical as you are of your style and yourself, because I know I'm more critical of myself than anyone else is, the more that you develop that, the more somebody may be like, I really want to try that. That is amazing. I want to try your style. I thought that was like the weirdest thing when somebody told me that. I'm like, I don't know that I have a style, do I? Like, my style is a mess. Isn't that my style? Anyway, perfection doesn't exist. I know comparison is so easy to do. I still struggle with it myself. I still struggle with perfectionism myself, especially sharing my stuff online. It is really hard to not get caught up in that trap. But please keep in mind that you just need to start, and then you can progress to where you need to be. You don't need to progress to match what somebody else is doing. You just need to progress to be where you need to be. So with that, those are my 5 tips for starting a bullet journal. I really genuinely hope that this helped. I know that it would have helped me when I first started. So, and even if you're not in a bullet journal, if you're in just a different planner, these tips can still help you, because I have noticed all these things in other planners as well. So, as always, thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.